keep Sophia in your prayers as you remember the German family. I've never preached through Joshua, which may mean we're going to be in trouble for the next few weeks. But we'll learn something together. Hopefully, I'm not going to preach through the whole book. Maybe the first 10 chapters. We'll see. There hasn't been a lot of preaching through Joshua, I've discovered this week as I've looked for sources and resources. And maybe that's because people regard it as primarily a history book, which it is, of course. But it's much more than that as well. It's a picture of us, the church, the people of God, entering heaven, crossing that spiritual Jordan River, if you will. It's an embodied prophecy or a type of heaven, as the book of Hebrews makes quite clear. We just sang it a moment ago, didn't we? I noticed, when I tread the verge of Jordan, bid my anxious fears subside. Death of death and hell's destruction, land me safe on Canaan's side. So we have much to learn as we look at this paradigm of salvation and the Christian life. Lord God, help us. We ask you to preach, your Spirit to teach, open our hearts, and give us insight and understanding that our faith may grow, that we may, as your people of old, fight the good fight of faith and keep the faith, fight the good fight, and finish the course, and land safely on Canaan's shore. Hasten the day of your return, O Lord, and make us ready in the meantime. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, we pray. Amen. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, into the land that I am giving to them, to the people of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon I have given to you, just as I promised to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites to the great sea, toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. But then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed. The Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And Joshua commanded the officers of the people, pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, prepare your provisions, for within 3 days you are to pass over this Jordan to go in to take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. And to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, remember the word that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God is providing you a place of rest, and will give you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your livestock shall remain in the land that Moses gave you beyond the Jordan. But all the men of valor among you shall pass over armed before your brothers, and shall help them, until the Lord gives rest to your brothers as he has to you. And they also take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving them. Then you shall return to the land of your possession and shall possess it, the land that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you beyond the Jordan toward sunrise. And they answered Joshua, all that you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. And may the Lord your God be with you as he was. Whoever rebels against your commandment, disobeys your words, only be strong and courageous. All flesh is grass, and all its loveliness is like the flower of the field.
The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever.
Amen. Well, how many of you want to go to heaven? Go ahead and raise your hands if you want to just have a little class participation here. I'm trying to see if there's any hands that are not going up. You know, preacher, not me, another preacher did that once upon a time. He asked that same question. And everybody raised their hands except one man. And his eyes were closed and his head was bowed, and the preacher thought maybe he was asleep, or maybe he's praying. So after the service, he made a beeline to find that man. He said, "Sir, I noticed that when I asked the question about who wants to go to heaven, you didn't raise your hand. Do you not want to go to heaven? Or were you praying, sleeping, or what?" "Oh, no," he said, "I wasn't asleep and I wasn't praying, and I very much want to go to heaven." "Why didn't you raise your hand?" He said, "Well, I thought you were getting a group ready to go right this minute. I'm not quite ready yet." I suspect he speaks for all of us, that we all want to go to heaven, but not just yet. Maybe a little later. Well, this is a book about the Israelites conquering Canaan. Finally, after many, many years, taking hold of the promised land, and it's a type of what we go through as well. The obstacles that we must wrestle against and eventually overcome to gain our promised land above. It is as though we already have title to it, but we haven't made the big move quite yet. So let me make several observations. First, the Lord promised this land to his people just as he promises heaven to us. The Lord has made a promise. And you see it repeated time and again here. Verse 2, "Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, into the land that I am giving to them." Verse 3, "Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have," past tense, "I have already given to you." Verse 6, "Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them." It's an ancient promise, in other words. Verse 11, "Pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, prepare your provisions, for within 3 days," more specific here, "you are to pass over the Jordan to go in to take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess." Can it be any clearer? And verse 15, "Until the Lord gives rest to your brothers as he has to you, and they also take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving them." He promised. And he promised from long ago. This promise was buried deep in the soil of a covenant that he established as far back, you remember, as Genesis 12. Old Father Abraham, the Abrahamic covenant. And God promised that Abram would have a great name and a great nation, that all the families of the earth would be blessed through him, and that he would also have a great land. But that was 600 years ago. 600 years is a long time, isn't it, for people to doubt, develop cynicism, skepticism, maybe even rank unbelief, as though it's never going to happen. 600 years. We're not very patient people, are we? We want something now, we don't even go shopping for it. We just call Amazon, don't we? It's amazing. Poof, it appears. Well, they didn't have Amazon, but they weren't very patient either. Human nature is never very patient. Was God's promise good? Had God forgotten? Think about those 600 years, because during that long period of time, Abraham had many sons and grandsons and great-grandsons, and they made their way to Egypt. And they found great prosperity for a time. But that prosperity eventually turned to slavery and misery. And by the time Moses came along, many generations of Israelites had come and gone without so much as a sniff of this promised land. And now Joshua begins on this very unhappy note, stated very matter-of-factly, but you know there had to be tremendous dismay in Israel because Moses was dead and gone. Their leader, their quarterback, their head coach, and they had no professional army, and they were staring at hand-to-hand combat. And they were poised at this moment in history on the east bank of the Jordan River. And between them and the promise of God was a raging river and a land full of gigantic Canaanites. And you remember that 10 of the 12 spies had said basically, no way, Jose. We're not going to be able to take that land. We can't defeat those people. And so what did Israel have going for them? Their leader was dead. They had no professional army, a raging river, and big bad Canaanites. They only had one thing going. They had the promise of God. Reiterated over and over and over and over and over again. A promise of God that stands the test of time. It's not somehow diminished by raging rivers or human skepticism. If you've read the Pilgrim's Progress, you remember the Christian and hopeful at one point were enslaved by giant despair and literally held captive in what's called Doubting Castle. Bunyan was great with words, wasn't he? And what was it that solved their problem? Suddenly it occurred to Christian that he had something very valuable. He said, what a fool am I to lie in a stinking dungeon when I may as well be at liberty. I have a key in my bosom called promise that will open any lock in Doubting Castle. Israel had a key called promise. They'd had it for 600 years, and there was no reason for any doubt whatsoever. Adoniram Judson, a great missionary, once said, the future is as bright as the promises of God. Indeed it is. It may not look so to Israel with all these obstacles, but they have a very bright future because the Lord had made a promise. And secondly, the Lord guaranteed his presence with Joshua, indirectly with all the people. Verse 5, no man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I'll be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. And again, verse 9, have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous, do not be frightened, do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And that makes all the difference. Moses may have been dead and gone, and the Israelites may have been dismayed about losing their great leader. And he was a great man. We forget how great he was. Moses was the one who confronted Pharaoh. Moses was the one who performed miracles, parted the Red Sea, led the Exodus, even spoke with God face to face. How do you do that? No one's supposed to be able to see God and live. But Moses spoke with God face to face. We forget how dominant, if I could use that word, how dominant Moses is in the Bible. He's mentioned 79 times in the New Testament. Joshua's mentioned twice. No one's mentioned in the Bible more often than Moses except for Jesus. Moses is mentioned 767 times in the Old Testament. I want you to count them later today. I didn't count them either. But I trust the commentator who's counted them. It's mentioned a lot because he was so great. But now he's dead and gone. Don't you think God might have said, let's wait a little while. You know, you waited 600 years, we wait a little while longer until a new leader emerges. Or maybe that's the way the Israelites thought. We better not go without our leader. But the first thing God says is, arise and go. Go over this Jordan, you and all this people, verse 2, into the land that I'm giving to them. You've got my promise, and you have my presence. Moses was great, but you know why he was great? Because God was with him. We forget that Moses had a rather, shall we say, weak beginning, right? He was a murderer. He was a fugitive. He was timid, full of excuses. Who am I, Lord? Who are you, Lord? I'm not a public speaker, Lord. Why me, Lord? But the thing that made Moses great was not his ability, but his availability. Nothing in himself, simply the presence of God with him. And the Lord is saying to Joshua and to all of God's people, I will never leave you. I'll never forsake you. It's not your ability. It's simply your willingness to be used. I've made a promise. You have my presence with you every step of the way. And then this third principle, which I think is very important, is that these first 2 points are no excuse for laziness. But let me put it this way. The people still had to fight. Verse 14. Your wives, your little ones, and your livestock shall remain in the land that Moses gave you beyond the Jordan. But all the men of valor among you shall pass over armed before your brothers and shall help them. This is an important detail because this word is addressed to 2.5 tribes. And those tribes are mentioned in verse 12. The Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. And if you're like me, you've probably forgotten that years earlier, these 2.5 tribes struck a deal with Moses. They asked if they could settle beyond the Jordan, on the eastern side of the river, and Moses conceded to their request, provided that when the day finally came for the conquest or the invasion of Canaan to occur, that these 2.5 tribes would still join their other brothers and help. Because you can imagine how tempting it would have been for the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh to rationalize and to say, it's not our problem anymore. We have our home. We have our family settled. We have our land to farm. We've work to do. And besides, there are plenty of good soldiers among those 9.5 tribes. Like Pontius Pilate, wash their hands of participating in the hand-to-hand combat. They, no doubt, many of the men thought, I might die. After all this, I finally have a place to live, and now I have to go to war. But that was the promise. Those were the terms that Moses acceded to their request. And how did they respond when Joshua gave these instructions? They responded with tremendous conviction. It's a beautiful thing. Verse 16, they answered Joshua, all that you have commanded us, we will do. And wherever you send us, we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. The only way the Lord your God be with us, as he was with Moses. All for one, and one for all. All hands on deck. No excuse for passivity. Yes, the Lord promised this land, and yes, he would be with them every step of the way, but yes, they had to fight for it. Hand-to-hand combat. Even the 2.5 tribes that were already settled. In other words, Israel would conquer Canaan together, or she wouldn't conquer them alone. I trust that the application, the connection to you and me is very obvious. You see, if these 2.5 tribes hadn't participated in the conquest, it could well have demoralized the others. Just as if one person, one family, one minister, one church somehow falls away, it can have a very demoralizing effect, can it not, upon the people of God? The church father Augustine once said, just as God didn't make us without us, neither will he save us without us. I'm not sure I quoted that right, but the point is, we're together. We are the people of God. And as iron sharpens iron, we're to encourage and stimulate each other to love and good deeds, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, but owning corporate responsibility, because taking the promised land is not going to be a cakewalk. Crossing the Jordan River, living the Christian life, yes, we have the promise of God, yes, we have the presence of God, but I find it to be difficult to live the Christian life. I find it difficult to follow Christ every day. I find it difficult to believe some of the things I read. The Spirit's willing, but the flesh is weak. And so we need comfort and encouragement and strength that we are supposed to derive from each other. Or as you saw here, again, I mean, I wonder sometimes if the Lord superintended the composition of the Scriptures, if he thought his audience, that would be you and me, is deaf or dumb or both, because he repeats himself over and over and over again. And you've already seen some examples this morning, but here again, what did he say to Joshua time and again? But be strong and courageous. That's the courage, that's the attitude that's required. Verse 6, be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land. Verse 7, only be strong and very courageous. Get the point? Emphasis. Verse 9, there it is again, be strong and courageous. Verse 18, the very last words of this chapter, only be strong and courageous. This is not for the faint of heart. What does the Westminster Confession say? But there ariseth within every one of us a continual and irreconcilable war to live the Christian life. And so Paul says, put on the armor of God, fight the good fight, keep the faith, finish the course. Henceforth, here's the promise, there's laid up for me a crown of righteousness that the Lord, the righteous judge, shall award. Now, courage can mean different things in different contexts. We're not facing hand-to-hand combat as they were. But you notice the exhortation here in terms of courage is not addressed so much for people facing a military conflict. No, the exhortation is to be strong and courageous. In verse 7, look at it. Being careful to do according to all the law that Moses my servant commanded you. He's saying it takes courage to believe. It takes courage to meditate on the law, the Word of God, day and night. Verse 8, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it, but then you will make your way prosperous. Then you'll have good success. We're in a war. And don't underestimate the enemy. We war against the world, the flesh, the devil, principalities and powers. And the enemy we war against is so much stronger than the Canaanites. You who stand, take heed lest you fall. Are you familiar with Josh Harris? Anybody? No. Okay, good. Yes, good. author, popular, Kissing, Dating, Goodbye, one of his more popular books, pastor of, is it New Life Covenant Church or New Covenant Church, something in Maryland. The church that started Sovereign Grace Ministries, still a young man. But just announced, you can look this up, just announced last month, he's no longer a Christian. And that's nothing new. Go back to 1945 and look at Billy Graham and Phil Templeton and Ron Clifford. And Billy Graham, the three bright young evangelists that the media wrote about, and one was described as the next Babe Ruth of evangelism. Billy Graham was the only one that held true. We're in a war, and we all must fight. Yes, God's made wonderful promises. Yes, we're going to inherit the land. Yes, He's going to be with us. But we all have to fight. And therefore we need each other. We need the people of God and the kingdom of God around the world. I'll close with a more encouraging example. About 6 years ago with Christianity Today, there was an article about a young man who was raised a Mormon. And in fact, his mother was a professor at Brigham Young University. And she raised all her children to be very devout Mormons. And it came time for this young man to take his 2-year mission trip, which he did. But 3 weeks before his stint was to end, he was sent home, which according to his mother was a horrible disgrace in the Mormon culture. And what had happened was he'd been reading the New Testament. Imagine that. And he met a different Jesus than the one he had been taught. And so in his parting testimony to a room full of other Mormon missionaries, he professed faith in Jesus alone. Amen. And not the Mormon church. And was promptly expelled from the mission and about to be excommunicated from the church, but his family prevented it by hustling him on an airplane out of Utah. And as he boarded the airplane, he pleaded with his parents and said, please read the New Testament, which they did. And the rest, as they say, is history. Might have been easier for that young man to keep his mouth shut. But you see, he was strong and he was courageous, and what a blessing he undoubtedly became to his entire family. I tell you, it's no cakewalk to cross the Jordan River. So put on the armor of God, fight the good fight, knowing the Lord is with us, and He's promised the eventual outcome. Father God, we thank You for the eventual outcome. We confess our weakness in the interim, and so we ask for Your help, for Your word to dwell in us richly. May we meditate on it day and night, though it never returns void. And so may these great promises not lead to passivity on our part, but rather may these great promises and Your presence encourage us to fight and to fight well. And by Your grace, may you keep us from falling, and one day present us faultless before Your presence with exceeding great joy. Through Jesus Christ our Savior, in His name we pray.